Hello, welcome to DKR Sports once again. This is Billy Frey with your weekly fantasy football update before these upcoming games this week. Today in our fantasy episode, we're not going to break down the positions as specifically as last. We're going to look more just at risers and fallers at the main position of quarterback, running back, and wide receiver. So my quarterback risers, I'm going to quickly run through. We got quarterback Matt Ryan from the Atlanta Falcons is still a riser. I had him highly ranked last week, if you remember. And Matt Ryan continues to impress. He threw over 500 yards last game. I believe he's playing Denver or some other tough defense this week. So that is going to be a challenge for him. But with Julio Jones, who's also rising right now, we'll talk about him more later. You can't go wrong with starting Matt Ryan. Next, Ben Roethlisberger. The Steelers decimated the Chiefs last week, and basically they got an easy game against the New York Jets this week because the New York Jets have a decimated defense. Another quarterback, Brian Hoyer, currently the starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears, filling in for Jay Cutler. Lots of Jay Cutler trade rumors going around. Brian Hoyer, maybe he'll stay the starter even when Cutler's healthy. Brian Hoyer impressed last week, put up over 20 points in ESPN standard leagues, and continue to keep watch on Brian Hoyer. Keep him as a waiver pickup right now. I'm not sure if he's starting potentially yet. Solid back. Our next quarterback is quarterback Russell Wilson of the Seattle Seahawks. This also gives nod to Ben Roethlisberger, who's playing the Jets this week, but Russell Wilson tore apart that Jet defense. The Jet defense has a weak secondary, and Russell Wilson's finally found his niche, and expect more from him coming forth, and he's a solid quarterback to start. Another rising quarterback right now is Blake Bortles from the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars are a great team, but they got off to a rough start. They got one of the most elite receiving cores in the NFL, so I trust Blake Bortles at starting QB. Had a great week last week. We can see more from him this week. Our next quarterback is a surprise, the 3-1 St. Louis Rams. We got Case Keenum at quarterback. Case Keenum is going to be successful again this week. The Rams have been surprising. I'm impressed. Jeff Fisher's done a great thing with them. Surprised we haven't seen more Jared Goff, who went first overall, to be honest. But Case Keenum put up about a good amount of points this week. I believe over 16 points, which is good for the type of quarterback he is. Solid backup quarterback if you can pick him up, especially in deeper leagues. The next quarterback is Joe Flacco. Usually goes a lot of people's radars, but he put up a great week, over 20 points last week. The Jaguars are a really good team. I'm sorry, not the Jaguars. The Ravens. The Ravens are a really great team, not the Jaguars. Joe Flacco is on the Ravens. I'm not talking about Blake Bortles anymore. But expect big things from Joe Flacco. He's got veteran wide receivers in Mike Wallace and Steve Smith, so he's got some trustworthy guys there, and he's also got some young guys on that with running back Terrence West. So great to see what we can see from Joe Flacco. I like him at fantasy. Another rising quarterback, our final rising quarterback, is Phillip Rivers, San Diego Chargers. Rivers has consistently been great, and I believe he's playing he's playing Raiders, who have a good defense actually. But it'll be interesting to see who will come on top versus Raiders versus Chargers, and Phillip Rivers is just consistent. Now we'll run through our fallers. I'm not going to go too in-depth with them. Just basically it's going to be either drop them, trade them, or get rid of them. That's all you got to know about these guys. And if you still have them, that's just bad. So we got quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick of the New York Jets. Should be dropped, traded, or basically not even be on a team. Throwing the most interceptions in the NFL. I'm a Jets fan, and I believe in Fitzpatrick, but I don't believe in him in fantasy. Then our other guys are Matthew Stafford, Detroit Lions, Ryan Tannehill, Miami Dolphins, Drew Brees, New Orleans Saints, and Trevor Siemian, who just got hurt. Carson Palmer's also been ruled out for this week, so that's another thing why he's on here. I would normally not have him on here, but that's why he is on here. And Trevor Siemian should be dropped because of he's also injured, listed as questionable, and might become Paxton time. Okay, moving on to the running backs. We got Isaiah Crowell, who's one of the surprisingly a league rusher leading in rushing yards right now, Isaiah Crowell from the Cleveland Browns. Only successful piece on that Browns team right now. And honestly, he's a safe running back 2, low-end running back 1. So, couldn't go wrong with him. Matt Jones put a big week last week. Continue to see another big week this week. He's a big piece of the Redskins offense. I like Matt Jones. Next, we got Terrence West from the Baltimore Ravens. This is really just rooted from that he's a riser because Justin Forsett just got released, and Terrence West has been declared the bell cow back of the Baltimore Ravens, and he'll be getting a lot of carries from here on out. And Jerick McKinnon from the Minnesota Vikings. We weren't sure after the Adrian Peterson injury really if it was going to be either Matt Asiata or Jerick McKinnon, and after waiting a bit, we can declare that it's Jerick McKinnon. Sorry for the previous interruption. We were back with DKR Sports, with our Fantasy Weekly update. So, we were just talking about Jerick McKinnon, and Jerick McKinnon's a safe pick because he's going to be the new starting running back. While Adrian Peterson's out, it's not going to be Matt Asiata. Next is Jordan Howard from the Chicago Bears. Jordan Howard is a rookie that's emerged. We thought it was going to be Langford, but looks like Howard will be getting the majority of the carries, so Jordan Howard's a good pickup. And lastly, Orleans Darkwa. The Giants running back's iffy really between Darkwa, Perkins, and Jennings, but I think Darkwa's the big pick here. And our running back followers, I'll run through them really quickly, are Theo Riddick, Detroit Lions. I don't like him. Bad week last week. Duke Johnson, Cleveland Browns. Jay Ajayi, Miami Dolphins. Matt Forte, New York Jets, who was ranked high last week. The Jets are struggling, so it's a risk to even play him right now. Any Jets player, really. But besides Brandon Marshall, I'll get to that later. Chris Ivory, Jacksonville Jaguars, really been a disappointment after last year so far. Todd Gurley, another disappointment this season, hasn't done much despite the Rams' success. Jeremy Hill, Cincinnati Bengals. I think Gio Bernard's a better pick than Hill, in my opinion. And Spencer Ware, who's been on the decline the past couple weeks, was started off really good, but he's going to be less. He's going to be used less with when Jamal Charles begins becoming healthy, so he's going to be less involved in the offense. We're moving on to our wide receivers. To top it off, our top wide receiver risers, Julio Jones, who started the season off really weak. Julio had a 300-yard week last week, and he proved to everyone that he can still, it was just a fluke here at the beginning of the season, and he's going to continue to put up big numbers. Next is Michael Crabtree. A lot of times when people think of the Raiders, we think of Amari Cooper as the big receiver there, but Crabtree picked up 3 touchdowns last week. The Raiders have a competitive offense, and as we saw last week with the Chargers, they don't have a great secondary, so look into Crabtree. Will Fuller, the rookie that emerged alongside DeAndre Hopkins. Hopkins is he's good receiver, but Will Fuller is emerging, and with double coverage on Hopkins most of the time, or the top corner on Hopkins, it's opening up for Fuller, so Fuller is a good pick. Brian Quick, St. Louis Rams. Someone needs to score touchdowns on the Rams. It looks like it's either Tavon Austin or Brian Quick. Quick had a big week last week. I expect a big week again. Next, we got John Brown, Arizona Cardinals. It's really Larry Fitzgerald's team over there, but with John Brown being the young receiver he is, I really think he's the top receiver on that team right now. He had a great week last week, and again, expect big things. Brandon Marshall, New York Jets. I know I'm a Jets fan, and I've been trashing the Jets a bit. I feel guilty myself, but Brandon Marshall is my only Jet that's a riser this week. He is a continued consistent force on that offense, and he's really the only thing going for it right now. And he'll continue to bring in points as long as he's active on that team, because he's going to be the only force going forward that can contribute in a good way. Marcus Whedon, he's healthy now, and he'll be filling that role finally for Martavis Bryant, and we should see similar stats that Martavis Bryant received last year. So essentially good fantasy stats, and expect a good fantasy performance from Marcus Whedon again like last week. Finally, Terrell Pryor really emerged on the fantasy scene, the original quarterback of Ohio State, now turned to wide receiver for Cleveland. Continue to expect big things from Pryor. I really like the guy. I think he's really good, and he's got all the intangibles, and he will be a great receiver going out. He's the Browns' top receiver right now, with Josh Gordon not coming back and Corey Coleman hurt. So expect big things, Terrell Pryor. And to close us off, our wide receiver fallers are Kelvin Benjamin, very disappointing the past couple weeks. Jeremy Maclin, he has some injury concerns right now, and not a great week last week. Marvin Jones, he is the top receiver in the Lions. I know I praised him last week, but he's a fall right now because it's an iffy situation there in Detroit, because Detroit's not the best team. And he isn't. He's not the new Megatron, like I said. Mike Evans is a faller. I had Mike Evans on my team. I like him, but he didn't score a touchdown last week, so that's why he's a faller. Last week, Jarvis Landry and Doug Baldwin, really, it's essentially the same reasons. They would have had good weeks last week. They got a touchdown, but sadly they didn't. So they're followers. And this has been DKR Sports with your Fantasy Weekly Update. I apologize for the interruption earlier, and we will be with you again next week.